have a speaker tonight. Looks like Keisha Perkins.
Yes.
Right.
Actually, I have two Iowa CCI members here, one of which is a Warren County resident, and the other is from Adair to help provide some extra help on explaining everything. So my name is Keisha Perkins. I live in Norwalk, Iowa, so I'm a Warren County resident. And I am also a community organizer at Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement, which you might have heard of as Iowa CCI. Oh no, you're fine. Joe, just to give you a kind of a background of why we're here is to ask you to pass the Master Matrix Resolution. We call it the Master Matrix Resolution. It's actually called the Construction Evaluation Resolution. So Warren County has 6 factory farms, one cattle that has 999 head, and this is according to DNR records, and 5 hog operations with over 12,000 hogs. And you might think this is a small number in comparison to like our neighboring counties that have anywhere from 25 to 30. And think that the Master Matrix Resolution is unnecessary, but 300 to 500 factory farms are built every single year. And just because they're not everywhere now doesn't mean that's not going to change in the next few years. And regardless of the number of them, they still have a drastic impact on the soil, air, and water quality of our county and statewide. So just to help you understand, Warren County has multiple polluted lakes, creeks, and rivers that are currently on the DNR's impaired waterways list, all with elevated levels of bacteria and E. coli. And some have been found to have dead fish due to fertilizer spills. And the DNR openly admits one of the major sources of pollution is non-point source pollution, a lot of which from farmland. And our drinking water is also bought from the Des Moines Water Works, which they get their drinking water from the Des Moines and Raccoon River watersheds, both of which are on the impaired waterways list for, again, increased levels of bacteria and E. coli. And the Raccoon watershed is known as one of the most polluted rivers in the state of Iowa. And because it is so polluted and has such high levels of nitrates, Des Moines Water Works has to have a $2.5 million system dedicated to nitrate removal that costs taxpayers billions of dollars every single year. So Des Moines Water Works has openly stated that this pollution is primarily due to agricultural land use, fertilizer spills, farm runoff, manure spills, things like that. And in 1998, before the factory farm industry really took over, we only had 159 impaired waterways, and now we have exactly 767 impaired waterways. So this is like becoming an increasing problem, pollution throughout the state that is starting to drastically affect our water quality statewide. The Master Matrix is just one way that we can make sure that we get a chance to have a voice in whether or not we want factory farms building in our community, whether or not the permit should be approved or denied. It's just a recommendation, but that resolution again allows us to have a voice. But I'm going to turn it over to Barb Kalbach, who is an Iowa CCI member, to kind of give you more of an understanding.
Hi. My name's Barb Kalbach. I'm a 4th generation family farmer from Adair County and a registered nurse. And I've been involved in the factory farm fight generally for 18 years now. And as Keisha said, our impaired waterways have increased right along with a number of factory farms from 212 now to 757 in that 18 years. So I'm not quite sure how many waterways that we have to impair that are left that we haven't got done yet, but I hope that we can fight back against it a little bit and try to keep our waterways clear. The thing about the Master Matrix is 89 of the counties have adopted the Master Matrix on a yearly basis, including my county that has always adopted it every year that it comes out. It's one of the first things that they do in January. And what it does, it's 880 questions that the guy who's building the combined animal farm fills out, and he will indicate on there no, I won't build near the church, no, I won't build near the school, no, I'll be so many feet from the waterway, so many feet from the neighbor, so many feet from the town. But bottom line, well, they need 440 points off of that 880 to pass that master matrix. The thing of it is that if you guys don't have the master matrix or don't adopt it to use during the year, you have no voice in where these are placed or where the builder places them. The only thing in state law that will tell you or give you any protection whatsoever is 1,975 feet from the corner of the nearest building to the corner of the nearest home, the nearest, you were talking about an RV park. They could build 1,975 feet from the RV park. There's nothing to stop them. That's it. One regulation protects neighbors in the state of Iowa. The master matrix gives you a chance to go through and see how they've scored it and whether or not you agree with that score. And if you don't, you can recommend that the DNR not permit that site. If you think it's fine, then, you know, all's well and good and they go ahead and permit it. But at least you have a voice. And as Keisha pointed out, they don't always want to build where you would assume, which would be out away from everybody on a farm. Sometimes it's too close to certain facilities like schools, like soccer fields. There's one up in Story County that they built quite near a soccer field where a lot of kids play. And so those are the kinds of things that, it's kind of power or at least input that you would get. And the other thing about supporting the master matrix too is 89 out of 99 counties already have adopted it, and what you would be doing would be saying, hey, I have your back. You know, that gives people a little more power in the legislature when we're trying to get some laws changed, a little more power to say, hey, you know, 90 counties have implemented this master matrix and there must be a reason, and we need to look at that and how it impacts citizens. So I hope that you will consider doing that tonight. Thank you.
Lastly, this is Jackie's another Warren County resident like myself, who just wants to talk.
Hello, sorry. My name is Jeff Kissling. I live here in Indianola. I just support what they're saying as well. I grew up on farms in Iowa. They were small. They weren't anywhere near factory farms, but I've been a real concerned about environment my whole life. And fortunately, I made a number of Native friends over the past couple of years, and they made me more aware of the sacredness of water and Mother Earth and protecting all the relations. So having this matrix at least gives us the opportunity to talk about a factory farm coming in if it wants to. Thank you.
And then just to close, so Iowa CCI has over 5,000 members across the state of Iowa, all of which are very concerned about all the same issues we've been talking about, and all of which fight really hard in all of their communities to make sure that they at least have some type of voice and an ability to have an opinion in the conversation. All we are asking for you today, especially for myself and Jeff, since we are residents of Warren County, is to vote yes to pass this master matrix resolution, so that we do get the chance within this year that if for some reason a factory farm submits an application to build in Warren County, that we get the chance to review their application and see if that is what is really best for us. And unfortunately it's on a time crunch because you do have to pass and submit it to the DNR by January 31st this year. Otherwise we lose our option to say anything for the rest of the year. So I just want to thank you for having me here and for allowing us the chance to talk about this issue with you all.
Will you take questions?
Yeah, of course.
Can you explain sort of the process in those 10 counties? Apparently Warren is one of them that doesn't have this adopted for the permitting process of a factory farm or a capo or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that I mean there is a process. It's
Yeah.
just it's not as rigid or as many questions I assume. Do they have to make it an application to the DNR?
Yeah, so basically the way it works is they have to submit an application with the DNR showing like the area to which they plan to put the factory farm, and there are obviously like state regulations around how much they can build and what determines whether or not they're a medium or large size concentrated animal feeding operation, CAFO. With this master matrix, it's essentially just like a scoring sheet. That's an additional thing that factory farms have to do in addition to their normal application. That essentially, like Barb was saying, you get more points based on how far away you are from the nearest public school or whatever. There's like multiple categories for air, water, and the other one is
Community.
yes, community impact. So it basically just kind of tests them on those kind of impacts. So if you all vote to pass this, essentially what would happen is it tells the DNR that you want to be notified if factory farms submit an application to build in Warren County. Then we get a chance to, yourselves, and also it's very common for community members who are passionate about this to look through the application themselves and get a chance to score it and look through. Sometimes there have been, this is something my organization does all the time, there has been instances in which factory farms have explicitly lied on their applications, and we just go through and double check that all the information they provided in all other parts of their application match what they're saying when they score themselves on the master matrix. Because it's a self-scoring sheet as long as they meet the bare minimum 440 points out of 880, which I'll admit is 50% passing score. So there's definitely some things about the master matrix that aren't perfect, but it is like the one and only tool that we get to use in order to have a say in that conversation.
Another question, if you had, if you could just sort of recall, maybe in your mind, the last 10 or so master matrix applications, what sort of passage rate are occurring on those? I mean, are you seeing 70% passage
So
regardless of
what
the master
usually
matrix,
happens,
or are you seeing fails and now counties are saying, no, we don't want this because of whatever reason?
a majority of the counties, like we were saying, only about 10 of them every single year, including Warren County, don't pass it. Usually it's because they kind of, for the similar reasons, like a small number of factory farms, they don't think it's necessary. All of the other counties, most of the reason why they're passing it is one, just so that their constituents do get at least some type of opinion in it. And because in many cases, folks who do submit factory farm applications actually only fill up to the 440 point line. They are not required to fill out the whole entire application. They only have to fill up just enough to meet the 440 points, and once they hit that number, they stop. In most cases, that's exactly what they do, which is unfortunate for us that is the requirement for it. Because then a lot of times, there's like a minimum amount of points they have to get in air quality and water quality and the community aspects. But again, they only have to fill up to the point in which they meet the 440 point limit. So it's easy, which makes it a little easier for the rest of us, because we essentially get to go back and what they did choose to score, see if that matches up. If, say, they claim that they're, 3,000 feet away from the nearest public school, and then we look back at all their other application materials and they're actually only 2,000. We can go back, deduct points for that, and that oftentimes can drop them below the 440 point threshold.
Do they then just resubmit and fill out another 10 points?
They have to, they have to revoke their application or request that the DNR allow them to appeal and just like resubmit the same application with fixing things and proving that what they're saying now is legitimate. In a lot of cases, they do end up just revoking the whole permit. Sometimes that prevents them from ever applying again. Sometimes they just ask for like an extension to complete the application, go back, redo everything, and then apply for it again.
So the question is sort of, if you took 10 or 100 applications through the master matrix, what sort of percentage are still getting granted?
The DNR approves 98% of the factory farm applications that come through their office.
And what does that change with the master matrix?
The master matrix allows us, so normally we don't get to recommend that the application be approved or denied. Essentially if this is just a county's recommendation that it be approved or denied. If the DNR chooses to continue to approve it despite our recommendation for denial, at that point, because we have passed the master matrix resolution, we could file for an appeal or have a public hearing with the rest of our county residents, and that could cause the DNR to have to redo their decision. If that makes sense.
Also, we can go to the EPA, appeal to the EPA.
Yes, yeah, we can make an appeal to the Environmental Protection Commission.
But that's only in an event where they're scoring less than 440.
If they're scoring less than 440 and we have passed the master matrix, their application will not pass at all. Then they're going to have to
So if they
remove it.
score 450 points,
Mhm.
that still allows you to appeal it?
Yeah, at that point, if they meet, as long as they get 440 points minimum, that means the DNR passes every application that meets like basic minimum qualifications. So the DNR normally would just pass it, but that because we passed the master matrix resolution, we would get to see it first, review it for ourselves. If we see a discrepancy or have a problem with where it's being put, then we essentially send a recommendation to the DNR. We want to deny this application because this reason. The DNR will vote to approve it or disapprove it based on what we said and what they decide on their own. And then at that point, if they still approve it, even though we told them to deny it, we can appeal that decision
To the EPA.
to the EPC, Environmental Protection Commission at the DNR.
Tell me this,
Yes.
this is the 21st of January, and we've gotta do this in 10 days?
Yes.
Now, you could have brought this in anytime during 2019.
I actually just started working at Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement only a few months ago and really started learning about this process and how it works. And I've always been passionate about this issue. I went to Iowa State and studied agriculture. This was just one facet of the thing that is something that constituents often don't get told about or educated on. And then once I learned that Warren County is one of those counties that doesn't pass it, I reached out and sent that email, which Crystal responded to, and then she invited me to come to the County Board of Supervisors meeting, and then worked to get myself on the agenda. I do apologize for taking this long though to get on the agenda, because I totally understand the time crunch.
What other, a few counties, there's apparently 10 of us, we're one of them. Can you tell me some of the other counties?
They're pretty much all in southern Iowa. Let's see, Lee is one of them. That's my fault. I have a map of all of them. But yeah, they're all pretty much like southeastern counties, because that's like where the fewest number of factory farms tend to build. Most of them are concentrated in the northern part of the state, specifically the northeastern part of the state. But more and more are starting to build, like Adair County and Madison County both have around 30 factory farms. So they're starting to build more and more in the southern part of the state.
Now, when you talk about the process,
Yeah.
After the application is submitted and scored, who does the scoring? Would that be the Board of Supervisors? Would that be
The scoring,
ICC?
it's really just, the DNR essentially will just send you all a notification that'll say this factory farm is building, and then it's technically up to you guys to look at the application itself, or, a secretary or someone within the Warren County Board of Supervisors. But I also will be keeping an eye on those things, because I live here and it's important to me.
In our county, the Board of Supervisors goes through the scoring to make sure that it's accurate. Most of them know, your, the lay of the land and where things are. They kind of know the situation. And they just go through and make sure that what the builder has scored is accurate.
All right.
So-
Do they do that in like a public meeting or?
The public can attend it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's like a
usually
workshop.
you review it and then a lot of counties put it up for a public meeting so that it can be discussed what you all found, and also gives a chance for residents who are invested in this, like myself, who would look it over themselves to be able to mention things they've noticed as well.
I see it on email that they'll be approving it on their agenda, and so knowing that, I can attend if I want,
Okay.
so.
I have one more question, and
Yeah.
I know we're going over a little bit, that's fine though. What is the statutory definition of factory farm? What even trips the trigger to get?
Yes. I meant
Because
to-
if someone wants to raise chickens and have a handful of them or a few
Yes,
I
what
certainly
I'm-
don't wanna bother the board or others with
Yeah.
people, I don't wanna live by 5, I don't know, specialty hogs that some guy wants to smoke, I mean, I don't care. So what's sort of the breakdown number to even trip the trigger to call it a factory farm in the first
Yeah.
place for hogs and cattle?
I want to explicitly clarify that factory farm is the term that my organization uses. When we say that, we are referring to what the DNR calls concentrated animal feeding operations, or CAFOs. So that's basically and they consider CAFOs, and you can find in their, they have a AFO site search, and they include on there basically all concentrated animal feeding operations that are considered medium or to large, which I believe medium is starting at 500 animals.
500 animal units.
Yes.
And an animal unit is one cow, or,
Okay.
one.
Yeah,
one
it's
head
like
of cattle.
decimal.
And what that is, that's at the level that you have to seek a permit, is at that 500 animal units or one head of
Mhm.
cattle. For hogs, it's 2.5 hogs is one animal unit, and that's about almost 3,000 head. That's when they have to seek that permit. Under that amount, they don't have to seek.
So under that amount, it's not even on the radar screen.
No,
Yeah.
there's no master matrix.
Which is why you won't find those on the DNR's AFO site search. You will only find the ones in which have to submit a permit application.
Okay, thank you. And tonight's, no action, it's a presentation without board action, so we are aware of the timeframe. And, we conveniently now meet every day to do budget stuff. And so if at some point in the next 9 days, there will be an opportunity if the board chooses to move forward with it this year, we'll certainly have the time appropriate to do that, so.
Thank you.
And thank you for your presentation. Okay. Number 9, Supervisors report. Mr. Scholl, would like to start.
Thank you. I think most of my activity the last 2 weeks, since January 7th, has been, I wrote down 10 different budget hearings. And then I did have a meeting with Heartland RC&D. That would be my report.
Thank you. Supervisor McIntyre.
Thank you. Since our last board meeting, I met with a member of the newsletter team, a White House briefing call on infrastructure investment, attempted to attend a Spring Hill City Council meeting, Impact Advisory Council meeting, and at Impact, the weatherization for clients with LIHEAP has been approved. Help with propane is available, helping 12 of our citizens with snow removal this year. Applications are now being accepted for the Senior Farmers Market. Last year, 83 individuals were helped. Supplemental food program helped 35 families in Warren County, and 120 families were helped during Operation Christmas. Families needing help with their youth, sports, music, and other extracurricular activities can see the folks at Impact, located on the square. And Warren County residents can stop at any Impact office located in Boone, Polk, Marion, or Jasper counties, where those offices are, and they will be willing to help you apply for their programs. Number 5, 911 executive board meeting, and following that was a Warren County joint 911 service board meeting. Attended the Sandyville City Council meeting. attended ISAC Leadership School Committee meeting and attended ISAC University and attended our budget workshops.
Thank you. All right, you saw me feverishly writing there. I get now the benefit to go last, so I gotta jot down some stuff, and then I piggyback when my colleagues are, we all do the same thing on a few of these, so. Budget reports, we're gonna touch on that at the end, but yeah, we've had a number of meetings. They're all pretty preliminary at this point. But we're getting a better grasp on where we're going to be with revenue and expenses, and so it is moving in the right direction. I will tell the public that I felt that we had a productive first go around with the engineer's budget today. And I'm not sitting here to be critical with the public at all. I get that everyone's busy. I get that the meetings are sometimes not conducive for your attendance. And I get that some people watch it online, and so that's great. But the engineers meeting is very important for this county for a number of reasons, but mostly because how those dollars get spent in our county, that decision sort of happens now and in the next week or two. And those have a lot of impact for people in Warren County because really the time to voice concern or say, hey, we should allocate more money towards bridges versus rock or rock versus bridges or equipment versus other stuff, the chance to be heard for those very critical decisions. If you'd like to make your voice heard, I would encourage you to attend those and make your voice heard. Otherwise, we certainly take into account what our professional staff has to say and what the budget is. But I'm not admonishing anyone. I'm just saying that is the time where if you want to have an impact or you care about stuff, that's really the time to do it. So when the spring thaw happens, and it will happen, and the roads will get muddy, I understand that we're going to hear those comments, and I understand that. But really, the time for action is during those meetings. If you think that there's something there, or if you want to better understand how the budgets work, because last year was the first year, I think, potentially ever, that Warren County sent a maximum statutory transfer to the engineers department. I think we also did an increase of a couple $100,000 for emergency rock. Those are good things. So anyhow, back off my soapbox on that one, but lots of budget reports. All in all, I think they're going in the right direction. It's also it's a really good opportunity to sort of learn where some of those tax dollars are going. We did a budget workshop this morning at the Carlisle Library. Very, very small, but it's a neat place, and so we get to be out in the community, and we got to see what they did with some resources last year that was either in New Virginia or Kona. Was it New Virginia last year? They did.
Wasn't it Milo?
No, it was New
They
Virginia.
did a big Pete the Cat presentation, and it was well attended. I think Indianola has this year's, and I think it's a dinosaur themed event, and so look for that on the calendar as it comes up. But it'll be quite the fun time for kiddos who like dinosaurs. All right, budget reports. Those are going in the right direction. I attended a Carlisle City Council meeting. I know that's not exactly in my district, but the mayor reached out because there was a presentation on solar energy, and it was there was maybe some possible tie-ins with the county, and so wanted to learn a little bit about that. Followed that up with the mayor's meeting, Indianola, Carlisle, and Norwalk. Met with the engineer, spent some time with the sheriff, looked at the new numbers on jail inmate, because that's something that's coming up that I'll touch on too. But current numbers as of, what was I in there, Friday, right before the snowstorm, I think. Current numbers were 40 in Jasper County, 10 in Marion, and then there was 2 or 3 being held in other facilities. I think there's one maybe in Oakdale, but we were at 53 on Friday. Did an individual meeting with the Norwalk City Administrator and the Norwalk Mayor. public record because it came out, I think, yesterday or the day before, but Norwalk decreased the city levy rate. And I'll be anxious to see what the Norwalk School District does with theirs as well, but I hear good things are coming. So those are those. Last thing, I think I said at our January 7 meeting that we would anticipate that bids would go out on our Justice Center on January 8th, that those bids are out. And so the bid packages left on time per when they were supposed to. And now that they are public bid packages, I'm confident that people are being contacted about them to encourage a larger, more diverse pool of people to bid on them. And so they were scheduled to come back on January 30th. That has changed as of late last week. And the reason why it changed is pretty simple, but I want to be real upfront with everyone. There was a couple other projects, and so on big projects like a justice center or a school or whatever, larger scale projects, they just, contractors generally do that on Tuesday or Thursday. And I guess maybe people don't want to do it on Friday, I don't know why, or Monday seems like it's out, so Thursday was January the 30th, and there was one or two other ones on that date, and so a decision was made to move it to February the 4th, and that won't change. But on February 4, 2020, we're going to do a bit of opening packages here, and by February 4, late afternoon, or maybe February 5, we'll have some hard numbers to look at and review, and make a decision thereafter. So there's an update on where we're at with that. And that is all I have. Okay, number 10, public input. This is your opportunity to speak. The board is limited, or comments are limited to 3 minutes. Board's not going to take any action on the comments due to the requirements of the open meetings law, but may do so in the future. I'll assure the public that each one of your supervisors is listening to you. We take notes, and so if you want to come up and talk about something, we will, it'll very well might be on a future agenda, or it'll be discussed, or we'll take action at some future point, but we can't do so tonight. So with that, public input.
Good evening, it's been a while. Don Davis, 14763 Harrison Street. Just a couple of things. Thank you for the road rock on 143rd and 150th, and even on Harrison. It has made a big difference. Your snowplow operators have been spot on through all of this. And on a side note, I think congratulations, Aaron, on being the new chair, but as he smiles. But you're right, we're waiting for the thaw. And I'm hoping that within the budget and everything that you can address it a lot faster this year than what happened in 2019. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Larry Anthony Lawrence Anthony. I'm the newly elected mayor of Spring Hill, and I just wanted to introduce myself and let everybody know who I was. I plan to attend all these evening meetings, and that said, we'll be on vacation for next month, so I will not be attending that meeting. I want to apologize to Ms. McIntyre. We are now meeting at my house. I think you may have the address. I'll get some information so you can attend. And I've added to that a policy that if we do change the meeting dates or times, that we'll post that on the door. And I've got our first newsletter going out to Spring Hill. It also is interactive, so the residents can make a checklist of things that they're important to them. And also it includes our new cell phone that we have, our new email address, and a card that they can drop in our new mailbox that we just installed, so that if they want to have input, or also to have us contact them if we make changes, because with our limited city council, and we always try to have a quorum because we normally do not have 3 readings. You know, if we want to get something done, we need to get it done fairly quickly. you know, the challenges that we have, the goals I have, there was some discussion within the city council and within some people that advised me personally about whether or not Spring Hill should just go ahead and dissolve and just become a township of Warren County. And I was unopposed as mayor, so from what I can tell, had I not ran for mayor, that would have already taken place. I firmly believe that that is not in our best interest. I think that we can self-govern and you know, maintain our future as best that we can and try. My goals personally as the mayor is to maintain Spring Hill as an incorporated city, quiet town, that we can help maintain and our safety and our way of life. We have had, of the 4 properties that have recently sold in Spring Hill, 2 of those properties were sold to non-resident owners. The second property that sold was it was a residential property, which they all are, zoned residential, I believe. And the non-resident owner moved in some 30 plus junk vehicles within, apparently overnight, because we didn't really see it come in. And it was during a time when there was a lot of growth and trees and whatnot, we couldn't see it, but once it all cleared out. And so we, in our ordinances, we have the ordinances against junk vehicles, we have ordinances against overgrown grass. So the issues that we have there in Spring Hill, the primary one that we have is our condition of our roads. We have some box culverts and things that are in disrepair. Of course, we have limited budget. Basically, our budget gets us to, I think we're about a $26,000 overall budget for the year. And so that rolls into where we maintain our own roads, we pay for our own snow plowing. Obviously, the citizens pay for their trash removal through TRM disposal. But it doesn't leave, by the time we maintain our parks and our mowing and our snow removal and our road grading and rock, it doesn't leave us the kind of budget to go through these roads and redig our ditches out and replace box culverts. And of course, the interest there, I believe we have a farm to market road there, and I need to look into that. We also, of course, have bus services that go through. They don't go through for Spring Hill, but they go through for Norwalk students being picked up. We obviously have U.S. mail, postal issues there, and of course emergency services have to go through there. And if you've ever been through Spring Hill in the spring, it literally will be impassable at times. We'll have over a foot deep trenches where the water is cut because we don't have the proper drainage. So these are some of the issues we have. We have 2 or 3 structures that are, one of them was a residence that is actually, one of them that wasn't a residence is gonna collapse. The other one that is a residence has been unoccupied for about 10 years, and it needs to be somehow listed as a blighted structure and be removed or have something done there. And we have some issues of, we've got some residents that haven't mowed in like 10 years or so. So I'm trying to, I don't want to come in as mayor and make a bunch of changes and anger everyone, but surely there are limitations. You know, if you have the area of your yard that faces the street, I want to make sure that that gets mowed so it's not an issue about turning corners and whatnot. And obviously these buildings are rodent infested and dangerous for children could get in there and those buildings could collapse. So that's where I'm at. I know, you know, I hate to use this terminology, but Spring Hill's kind of been the redheaded stepchild of Warren County, you know, one of the many that we have. But we do have some great residents there and some people that have really been building up properties. I personally own a large property there, and I've recently invested in 5 other lots and 2 other houses. So I'm doing my part, and I also have a dog in the fight as far as property values. One of the other properties that I purchased, if I had not purchased that property, my understanding was that it was going to go to someone who builds and races figure-8 cars. Now, I have no problem with figure-8 cars, but in a small town like that, if you start firing those things up at 10:30 at night and hooping and hollering and running them things up and down the streets, then you have a serious problem. And it's along the lines of this large farm problem that can change everyone's way of life and everyone's property values. So I'm committed to trying to help the residents and try to maintain Spring Hill as a quiet, viable residential community that it is. And I may come for some support from you guys, and I'll try to get with you and fall in line with these meetings, and hopefully we can work together and try to maintain that as an incorporated city and make it viable for the citizens. So
Larry, what's the population?
I believe we were at 79. The last census that we had was, I think, was 2 years ago that I saw it, 79, right in that ballpark. They may have been counting dogs in that one, though. Right in that ballpark, so.
Thank you, Mayor.
Alrighty, thank you.
public input? Seeing none, we'll move to number 11, next meeting, February 4th. That's the morning meeting at 9:30. And with that, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Tracy?
McIntyre,
Aye.
Scholl,
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye. For your time.